Hello everyone. So, here we are, online physics instruction. But before we begin, I want to talk to you about something very important, and that's sacrifice. You've seen the news, and you know all about the coronavirus and the dangers. A lot of people could die. Hospitals could be overwhelmed. And to try and solve this problem, people already have made enormous sacrifices. All levels of the government have basically done terrible damage to the economy. We had a very good economy, a booming economy, and basically they've shut it all down. We could be going into a recession, or even a worse, a depression. There's enormous disruption. People can't even get basic supplies like hand sanitizer, toilet paper. Again, you've seen this all in the news. And as time goes on, with everyone locked down, businesses, people's hard work, things people have built over decades, many of them could go out of business. This is the sacrifice everyone is making to basically not stop and end the virus, just to slow it down so that it's not as devastating as it could be. But as your parents are staying home, I'm staying home, all teachers are staying home, there's something that could undo all that tremendous sacrifice already done. And that's parties. If you think of this as an opportunity to go out and hang out with your friends, maybe throw parties, then basically think of this. Your parents are staying home to prevent the spread of the virus, to save lives, causing enormous consequence to our world, our country. And you go out and you hang out with people, and there's one person at a party of 50 people or 20 or whatever it is that has the virus. And you go there and you maybe, take beer out of the same beer keg, or go to the bathroom, touch the door handles, the water faucets, and you bring that virus home, then basically you've undone all of the sacrifice. So what's being asked of you is sacrifice also. And basically it's just a little pause to your social life. And, maybe this has never been asked of you before, some kind of sacrifice of this magnitude. But let me just share with you another generation that was also called to sacrifice. And you already know this from the history books. You know about Pearl Harbor, you know about Nazis, you know about concentration camps, World War, the cities that were leveled and destroyed in Europe. So Pearl Harbor happens, and suddenly America is faced with the realization that they can't stay out of this conflict anymore. They can't just isolate themselves. Sacrifice is necessary. And so what happens is a generation at the time, called for good reason the greatest generation, what they did, and again, this is not, people with doctorate degrees or, big, strong adults, these were people just like you, your age. They paused their whole life. They volunteered. There was no draft. They volunteered for the military. Many of them even lied about their age because they were like you, under 18. And they lied about their age for what? So they could go across the ocean, throw their bodies at the bullets, throw their bodies under razor wire, get blown up by grenades, airplanes flying overhead, bombing. And basically they fought their way through Europe. And then, yes, they liberated the concentration camps. They ended horrors. They saw horrors. They smelled horrors. They heard horrors. Tremendous sacrifice. Then they came back home, scarred. And what did they do? They went on and they lived and created boom times. They basically decided that they were going to not punish Europe for the terrible crimes they had done. They were going to rebuild Europe. So they came into a war, they rebuilt a whole continent with their wealth and their hard work, thus saving and ending not one world war, but two world wars. They corrected the mistakes of World War I, They created a whole generation of new children, the baby boomers. That's what you're making fun of, by the way, when you say, okay, boomer. You're making fun of the greatest generation's response to tragedy. They decide they're going to go on and create wealth, create life, create peace. And so that was the answer of that generation. So, that's what's possible. And I'm not saying this to make you feel guilty, because nothing was ever asked of me of that magnitude. So I don't compare to the greatest generation. But now we have a challenge. And the coronavirus came, and things are asked of you. And one of them is just to put a little pause on your social life. And I don't think that's too much to ask. But when we're dealing with death and destruction here, economic destruction in our own country, you can do more than just shrug your shoulders and say, well, it's not going to affect me, so I'm going to go to my party because coronavirus doesn't kill me. So, a little bit, you can do a little bit more, just a little pause on your social life, stay home and try and isolate yourself. If you have to hang out with people, you know all the guidelines. I don't need to tell you about that. So stay home, pause on your social life. The other thing, the second thing that you have to do, what your duty is to keep up with the schoolwork. Now, this is different. Before this happened, if you wanted to sort of skate by and not do your work, and then I had to call your parents to tell them, hey, so-and-so is not doing their schoolwork, they're not doing their homework. That's a different situation. Your parents' lives were not under enormous pressure as they are now. Whether your parents tell you or not, let me just share some of the things that your parents are worried about right now. Their parents or your grandparents are the risky population. Your parents are literally worried that your grandparents, their parents, might die. Okay, so they have that to worry about. Maybe, unfortunately, your grandparents are to the age where they can't totally take care of themselves anymore. It happens, it's going to happen to all of us. And so now your parents are struggling with the idea, well, I've got to go help my parent, but I don't want to give them something that's going to kill them. So how do I help them without giving them a deadly virus? So this is on your parents' mind. Your parents are maybe not able to go to work. Are they getting paid? I don't know. Maybe their finances are now in a bind and they're worried about how they're going to pay the mortgage, things like that. Real problem, right? This is a real problem. So, of course, our hearts go out to all people who are going through that. Stock market plummeted. And you might say, oh, who cares? That's Wall Street. Well, you know what? Maybe in that stock market is the fund that your parents have been contributing to pay for your college. And so now that's just down in the dumps, and they're wondering, geez, am I going to be able to pay for my child's your college? They're worried about whether they're going to be able to pay for your college. Maybe your grandparents' pension fund or whatever, their retirement accounts are down. Geez, they're worried, is grandma or grandpa going to be able to take care of themselves financially now? So these are the enormous problems your parents are facing, the pressures. The last thing they need is an email from me telling them that you're not doing your work. Okay, that, I'm sorry, would be enormously selfish on your part. You can do your part. All that we're asking you to do is pretty small sacrifices. And they are big sacrifices, bigger than anything I had to make at your age. So I'm not discounting that. But just again, you can, if you're healthy and everyone in your family is healthy, you can stay home. You can do your schoolwork. Okay, school will go on. I'm going to do the best I can to continue. And that includes if you hear that the AP test or the Regents test is canceled. I will continue as if it is not, because those are just one little test. What we're doing here, what your parents pay the taxes for, what I spend all the time preparing, is to prepare you for hopefully a good life. where you get a good job that's rewarding financially, emotionally, and maybe you contribute to the world. Maybe some of you become doctors that solve the next coronavirus problem, okay, or engineers of some sort, or become financial people who can keep businesses running in the next crisis. This is what we're here doing, not preparing for a test. So no excuse. You've got to do your work, okay? That's what you can do to keep your parents from having to worry about one more thing, okay? So again, welcome, and you know, I look forward to working with you. I enjoy working with all of you. You're all great people. I don't want to say you're bad people and selfish, but I just want to remind you, sacrifice, okay? This is the time where you unfortunately do have to make sacrifices. Staying home, being safe, and not being another burden on your parents, okay? So thank you, and we will start soon with videos that will move us along, and hopefully let's all stay positive and as cheerful as we can. And one other thing, of course, you know, I'm saying doing your work, but if something happens, someone is gravely ill in your family, maybe you get sick, you know, your generation is not immune, people do get sick, let me know. And of course, you know, we'll be flexible through hardship. You know, I'm not going to say, you know, oh, your grandparents are sick, you must go, you know. So if that happens and you need a little flexibility, ask. That's all. Let me know so I don't have to start contacting your parents, okay? All right, thank you, and let's get started.